Give it one more minute. Just a second. Make sure we're up, and we'll get started. Okay.
Should we start?
Maria Hine Mateo or?
Maya say. Do you prefer Hine Mateo?
Oh, well, you can choose. I think that with the theme of my sermon, Hine Mateo might work better. But your call.
You got it.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll get started on page 128. Shabbat Shalom, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's great to see several of you here, and I know many of you watching on our live stream. This has been a very difficult week, I think, for so many of us because of what occurred in Texas And, with the words of Hine Mato, where we say how good it is to be together, it can be good. It can be right to be together after something difficult and for us to find peace in our world through Shabbat and through each other and through community. So I hope that spirit lifts us through Shabbat so that we can have this Shabbat of reflection, a Shabbat appreciation, I think, for our family that are with us, but also so that we can think about how in the coming week we can be partners with God in creating a world that is holier and a world that's more peaceful. And one of the ways we will be mindful of that is by singing Shalom Aleichem, which is on page 142, praying that everybody can have a Shabbat that is a peaceful one, that we can bring peace into our world. Page 142. Page 138. Let's turn to the L'cha Dodi, song that was written by Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz after the Inquisition in Sfat. He wrote this song saying that hopefully on Shabbat we can find holiness, we can find love, and these words were meant to capture what he was aiming for us to achieve. Page 138. Kabbalah. Verse 5. We rise for verse 9 and greet the entrance, face the entrance to greet Shabbat. You may be seated. Well, like I said, this week has been a difficult one for our world with what happened in Texas. And there are a couple things that I think light can represent that I've been thinking about. One is that if you've ever been to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Israel, I think the most moving part is when you go to the Children's Memorial and you go in there and you see millions and millions of lights, of candles flickering. But you realize that there's not millions of candles. There's only a few candles. And the rest are all reflections from mirrors. And what those lights represent is the potential that was extinguished during the Holocaust. But also it's a sign, too, though, that every person has light in them, and light to share in our world. And ultimately, I think as Jewish people, that is what we do here. We are supposed to be a light unto the nations of the world. And lighting our candles for Shabbat can serve as a reminder to us that we are supposed to bring light in places where there is darkness. And so I hope this Shabbat, as we kindle these Shabbat candles, we will think about the light that we each possess and how we can make our world a brighter place. Amen. We turn now to page 144 for the Hatzi Kaddish. Amen. Uchayedeho Beit Yisrael Bagala Bagala Uvismahan Kari Veimru Amen. Yesh Merabah Farah Le'olam Omeomaya Yitbarach.
יתברך וישבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר יתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה
Brihu
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירם בעלמה ואימרו.
Amen. We rise for the Baruch, page 146. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed Le'olam va'ed Yadadai-dai-da 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 You may be seated. Let's read together on the bottom of page 149. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of life. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of life. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
Baruch atah Adonai, Amari Baravi.
Page 152.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch
נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך וביתך, ולתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפו בין עיניך, וטבתם על מזוזה ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
אדוני אלוהיכם,
One of the most inspiring parts of our freedom from Egypt in that story for me is how the Israelites in that moment prayed as if everything depended on God, but they acted as though everything depended on them. When they saw their window of opportunity, when they saw the sea split, they rushed forward and crossed the sea. And what they realized in that moment was if they want a different future, if they want a better tomorrow, if they want change, that they could not just rely on prayer, but that rather they had to also take action. And as a result, they were able to have better tomorrows than today. And so we pray that we have the strength to take action too, to create better tomorrows for everybody in our world. And that everyone too will one day be able to reach a shore of a new tomorrow safely and celebrate just as our people did so very long ago. And so we will recall that on page 158 with the Mi Chamocha.
וגאלון יד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We turn to page 160. What we always learn is that we don't know what tomorrow brings. And so as we think about those in Texas and their families, we pray that all of us, especially them, will be watched over tonight, and that we can go to sleep in peace, and tomorrow wake up to a more peaceful future. Page 160.
Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, Abore Sukkot Shalom Aleinu, Yelkol Amo Yisrael, Ve'al Yerushalayim.
Page 162.
Ve'shameru enei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורתם בריתם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם לעולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ וביום השביעי שבת ויינפל.
164, we rise for the Amidah.
That my mouth may declare your praise. Ya-la-la-la-la, 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotzeinu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים הטובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע מוריד הטל מחכה לחיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו איש עיני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדם מלך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
This time we continue silently on page 172 through page 180, where you can use this as an opportunity for your own prayers and thoughts, and when you are finished, you may be seated. We are going to turn our thoughts now to those who are in need of healing of the mind, body, and spirit. Of course, we want to think of all those affected by the tragedy in Texas. And we'll turn page 371. Please join in with us. This week, we think of these members of our community and their loved ones. Gittel Leah bat Ma Shahana, Chaim Yosef ben Shana Libby, Gila Chaya bat Mordechai Leib v'Gila Leah, Aharon ben Avram Vasara, David ben Mordechai, Saul Haragi, Jennifer Collins, Mary Jane Levy Dixon, Thomas Dixon, David Dowsett, Yitzhak Figilski, Will Goldman, Sharon Katz, Jeffrey W. Levy, Megan Magleby, Janet S. Morley, Shari Pedersen, Andrea Anders, Shumei Shi, Penny Spector, and Judy Wolf. And if you have a name to add when I look in your direction, I invite you to share with our community. John Gregg. And if you're watching at home and have a name to share, I invite you to do so. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for joining us. Recently, a friend of mine who's a rabbi, for many years, he has very successfully been working for a nonprofit organization, and I think has taken that organization to new heights. And he announced on Facebook recently that he was just named the new rabbi of a congregation in California. So I messaged him, said, "Hey, congratulations, Mazel Tov, what a big achievement for you. Very excited for the new chapter in your career and your life." And his response to me was, "Sam, thank you. I'm going to definitely give you a call. You've been one of the more successful pulpit rabbis of my friends." I was very touched and flattered by this. But I had to admit a little bit, I'm not sure what he's talking about. What does success look like exactly? I'm curious to think what metric he is using to think that I'm successful. And as I reflected on this, it dawned on me on a conversation that I had with a rabbi who I look up to, and that I admire and think of is successful. This was before I became a rabbi. And I told him that he had been so remarkably successful at his synagogue. And he said he didn't know that he was successful. And I asked him, I said, "Are you out of your mind?
when you got to your synagogue, there were 300 families. 15 years later, you now have 900 families. You tripled the size of your synagogue. That's incredible. How's that not success? And he said to me, well, growing the size of your synagogue and adding families isn't what being a successful rabbi is about. That's not what success is. I said, what do you mean? Obviously, you're a great rabbi. People want to come and hear you. They want to have you as their rabbi. He said, that's not what success is, though. And I understand now what he's talking about. But I still don't know what the answer is to what success looks like. And the Parsha this week talks about success and prosperity, but doesn't give specifics about what success and prosperity are. But what Bechukotai teaches us is it says that if the people of Israel are to uphold the mitzvot that were just given, we are at the very end of the book of Leviticus, and so we have just gone all of these commandments over the past several weeks that we've been reading about. And basically, the book of Leviticus concludes this week by saying, if you follow these commandments, when you reach the land of Israel, you will prosper and be successful. Now, I regularly consider how lucky I am to be born in this country. I've been very fortunate to go all over the world and dozens of places, really exciting. And traveling to other places has made me appreciate all the more so how special this country is. People all over the world that I meet dream of living here and would give anything to live here. We have opportunities in this country that a lot of places don't. And as a Jew, I feel especially privileged here. I mean, this country is safer than most countries in the world to be Jewish in. And we have perhaps the most powerful military of the world in the world's strongest economy. In fact, the other day I was reading a news article that was kind of panicked and saying, we got to do something because in a few years, China is going to overtake us as the world's #1 power economy. And part of me was like, oh no, that can't happen. And then part of me was like, and we're still going to have, our economy will still be better than 195 other countries in the world. Like, this is a pretty special country. But does that mean that we are a successful country? This week, I think the answer is no. I was 11 years old when the Columbine shooting happened. And I remember how that rocked our nation, because, I mean, there had been other school shootings prior to that, but this was this massive, senseless school shooting that was kind of different than the other ones. And everybody said this was a turning point for our country. Except since Columbine, there have been at least 240 school shootings in the United States and over 311,000 students who have been directly affected and experienced a shooting at their school while they were there in our country. 300,000. And why is this the case? I remember after the shooting in Parkland, Florida, at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, I was saying to my community at the time, we need to do something. We need to speak up. We need to demand change in our country. And I remember being told by a person in my community at the time, Rabbi, you're not being appropriate or sensitive. This is not the time to discuss policy change. This is a time for thoughts and prayers. And I asked her, but I feel like I hear that after every one of these school shootings. When is a good time for us to talk about this? Because I don't want to be insensitive, but it feels like we never then do have the conversation. And her answer was, I don't know, but it's definitely not now. And having difficult conversations, I know, is hard and uncomfortable. But what this person, I think, was doing, whether consciously or unconsciously, was, let's not have that difficult conversation now. Let's have thoughts and prayers now. And after a couple weeks, we'll move on to another story in the news. And we'll stop talking about this. And so nothing happened. Nothing happened. And now we find ourselves having the same circular argument that we had after Virginia Tech, after Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and et cetera, et cetera. What we read about in the book of Isaiah on Yom Kippur is that God talks about people fasting and says, these are not the fasts that I want. These are not the sacrifices I want. And why we read that on Yom Kippur is that there are people out there who do things that they know are wrong. Embezzle, have an affair, commit fraud in various forms, and they know that this is wrong, and they come here on Yom Kippur, and they fast, and even in their fasting say, I know I'm doing wrong, I'm going to be better, or something, and then after Yom Kippur is over, they say, all right, I fasted, God has forgiven me, and they go back to doing that same thing the next day. And God says, if that's the way you behave, then it's meaningless. And so too are our thoughts and prayers. Because after all, what we learn in Jewish law is that if I offer a blessing or a prayer, like let's say, for instance, that I say, Hamotzi, the blessing over bread, and then I don't eat bread after saying that blessing, I have actually committed a transgression in Jewish law. This is a violation of Jewish law. And so likewise, by that same standard, for us to give thoughts and prayers and do nothing afterwards is a complete violation. Those are empty and meaningless. And I got to ask you, because I was typing this, and I was looking up some things, for this, and I saw a post on Facebook, and it hit me so hard. It hit me so hard, and it made me so angry, and it made me so embarrassed. And what this post was it was saying 21 people, 19 children, killed this week in Uvalde, Texas. 10 black people killed last week at a supermarket in Buffalo. And I'll tell you why it made me so angry and so embarrassed. Because I forgot. I had forgotten about that one from last week. Because this happens so regularly in our country and in our society that 10 black people being killed in a supermarket last week slips my mind when the next week we have yet another mass shooting. Because this is a problem that is happening weekly here. It has become normal. And going back to Isaiah, how the book of Isaiah opens. In the first chapter, it says, "And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Yea, and when you make many prayers, I will not hear, for your hands are full of blood." The hands of our nation are full of blood because 240 times since Columbine, our leaders and many of their supporters have said thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. And those prayers and thoughts have been empty. What we learn in Genesis is that we must subdue the world. And what that means is that God is saying, I'm not going to be a God who is micromanaging and is there directing each day and solving all the problems and answering all the prayers. No, that is one of the reasons I've created people, is that you are taking on the responsibility of being the caretaker of the world. And then the Talmud teaches us that the world only exists, the world that we take care of, only exists because of the breath of school children. That is what our holy texts say, that it only exists because of the breath of school children, and that we are responsible for ensuring that it exists. And we learn in Leviticus, keep in mind, like I said, but Hukotai in the Torah portion this week says that we will only prosper in the land that we are entering if and only if we are following and keeping the mitzvot that we just read about throughout the whole book of Leviticus. It boom right there in the middle, central to everything, is do not stand idly by while your neighbor's blood is shed. So are we prospering in our nation? Having parents empty out their children's college funds in order to plan their funerals and dig their graves, and having that be the way they use their money instead of investing in their future, in our future as a nation, indicates that we are not. May we take the proper steps to ensuring our children's safety and ensuring our nation's future. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will, and may it be our doing. Thank you for joining us this evening. And thank you, Cantor, for leading alongside me. I know we have some guests visiting us as well. By the way, it's nice to see you all. I feel like since Omicron, for several weeks there we had nobody, then 2 people. And each week we were having more and more people coming back and joining us in person. And from what I understand, that is going to only continue over the next few weeks, because we do have a lot of exciting things coming up. And one of those is, of course, tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. We will have Eden Garland is going to be called to the Bima as a bat mitzvah, and that will be a reform service. And our next, several of our next Fridays, 3 of our next 4 Fridays, are going to be really exciting ones you don't want to miss. Next Friday we will have our Pride Shabbat, and that's always a wonderful service. So please join us for that. And then on the 17th we will have our band playing, correct?
Yeah.
And we'll have our band playing for that Shir Shabbat Friday night, followed by dinner afterwards. And on the 24th is when we begin our Summer Shabbat series in people's homes. Jill, Miriam, and I will be hosting the very first one at our house on June 24th. And already we've gotten about 70 RSVPs for that. So We'll see how many people my yard holds, but please come. That will be a lot of fun, and there's going to be a lot of people there. Also coming up, this coming Tuesday, May 31st at 6:30 p.m., please join us via Zoom for an evening with Martin Tannenbaum, Salt Lake City native, a third-generation Utahn, who is one of the creators of Siddur Sha'ar Zahav, which is an LGBTQ Siddur. And so we're going to be kicking off Pride Month with Marty teaching us about this Siddur that we have just recently acquired and kind of walking us through that. So whether you're part of the queer community or you are not, you will find this evening really interesting, I know, as we go into that Siddur and see how they made the decisions they made in creating it. Speaking of Pride, on June 2nd at 7 p.m., you can join our cantor for the Pride Interfaith Worship Service at First Baptist Church, and there will be many faiths and traditions coming together to unite in service of song, prayer, and inspiration. Next Saturday, June 4th, is our 10th grade confirmation service. Join us for that. And then that night is when we are starting Shavuot. And so join us at 8 o'clock p.m. We'll have some cheesecake, a Ma'ariv service, and study on the book of Ruth and the Ten Commandments throughout the evening. And on June 5th and 6th, we will have our morning Shavuot services with Yizkor on day 2, Monday, June 6th. Like I said, our summer Shabbatot are coming up, and so if you are interested in hosting, we do have a couple Shabbatot left that need a host. We will be very grateful, and so contact the office. And also, if you know any preschool teachers, our preschool is growing, and we're looking to hire new teachers. So please send them our way too. Well, thank you again for joining us this evening. Shabbat Shalom. We are going to turn now to to the Aleinu on page 586. And as we open the ark, I invite you to please rise.
עלינו לשבח אדון הכל, לתת גדולה יוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהר, יגאל עלינו ככל המנה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך
You may be seated. Yizkor, we remember. Remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow. For dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. We remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be our inspiration and strength. For life cut short and vision unrealized, we remember. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and the fathers, for the children who were, and for the children yet to be, we remember. So we think also of those loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, and those who have died in this season and years past, and those whom we draw into our hearts with our own. If you hear the name of a loved one, I invite you to rise upon hearing that name. In the Parish Shloshim 30-day period of mourning, we remember Connie Gruber, Colamy member and also mother of Andrew Gruber, and Evelyn Victor Osherow, mother of Jackie Osherow. And this week we commemorate the following Yorkshires anniversary of the passing of these loved ones: Harry Albert Cantor, Sarah Lipset Allison, Donna Bellendrin, Esther Lena Bank, Ruth Campbell, Sadie Chesler, Yetta Doctorman, Morris Field, Walter Fogel, Nancy Foote, Miriam Fritzmeyer, Howard Garland, Rebecca Gerson, Harry Glick, Myron Goffin, Morris Goldberg, Leo Goldsmith, Jack Goodman, Morris Hayden, Larry Horn, Ronald J. Kaplan, Emil Kempler, Herman Kislansky, Alan Keston, Freema Kogan, Alan Cronenberg, Charlotte Levy, Fred Linden, Nancy Monroe, Paul Natick, Joel L. Olener, Lauren Plotkin, Bernice Yabek Schiffman, Nathan Silverman, Roberta Sperry, Fred J. Strauss, Frida Tassam, Miriam Goldstein-Orr, Sam Viskovsky, Bobby Walker, Bernard Weinsoft, David Zinnick, Leon Zuckert, and Raya Zussman. And if you have a name to add, when I look in your direction, you are welcome to rise. If you are at home and you have a name to add, I invite you to share that name too. And we think, of course, of all those over the past month who have senselessly had their lives taken from them. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. If you are mourning your tradition, do so. You're invited to rise. We are on page 598. Yitgadal v'kadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirte v'yimlech malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agalau v'zman kari v'emru amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam omei omaya, Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'pa'ar v'tromam v'yitnaseh, Yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'rehu, ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nehemata, dam iram be'alma v'emru, amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'emru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'emru, amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who are mourning, and comfort those who are bereaved. And again we say, amen. We are going to conclude by sharing a prayer from Isaiah that maybe one day nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and we will no longer again know war. You can turn to page 645 for this biblical text, which has become an anthem for peace in our world.
Lord,
please rise for Kiddush?
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, naborei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahavahu v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehila, l'mikrae kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'achata, v'yotanu kidashta, mikohamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ava uvratzon, Inhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, v'kadesh ha-shabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
And we'll also join together, thank you, for Motzi. Cantor.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz v'te'avon.
Evon. Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Te'avon and Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Excuse me. Oh, thank you. Shabbat shalom. Yeah? Oh, how lovely. Thank her for me. That is so lovely. Thank you so very much. Please tell her I'm so grateful for her words. I'm going to go out there in just a bit. I'm going to finish up here.